Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Friday. I hope you guys are doing well. We are live on the channel right now, so if you can see me, give me a thumbs up. Say hello in the chat. Today is July 5th, Friday. We're doing new moon in Cancer readings. Actually, the new moon is happening right now as we speak. It's taking place, so kind of cool that we get to share this together. If you guys are new to my channel, please make sure you subscribe. That way you are alerted as to when we have new videos, and also you can follow along because we are here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday trying to make sense of what's going on with the cosmos. And if you guys are new to my channel, there's a QR code right here. You can get in the queue. You can ask a question about your chart, whether that's a transit or a natal aspect. I'm happy to answer your questions. So just as a reminder, we are live on Friday the 5th. If you're watching this on Saturday, I'm no longer live. Please don't send any money for reading. Otherwise, you will be refunded. And let's see, what else? Well, in order for me to read your chart, I need to get some information from you. So I need to know your time, date of birth, and location, as well as the city, state, and country. Make sure you put in the AM or the PM for me. But I know we have people from all over the world, so if you guys can spell out the month, that would be helpful, so that way there's no confusion about the format. And make sure in the memo you put any particular information you want me to know, and please be specific and ask your one question. I've noticed we had a handful of people who asked multiple questions, so just because of the sake of time and making sure that we're able to answer everybody's questions, please do not ask generalized, tell me about love, money, career, and everything else. Please be very specific with your one question. Those of you guys who don't ask a question, I will be addressing basically the lunation that's taking place today. We'll be talking about the new moon in Cancer and how that's impacting you. And this is going to be the very first, I guess, like live reading that we're doing in the month of July. So if you are a level 3 member, you guys can cash in on your readings for the month. If you guys didn't already know, I do have memberships for my channel. There's 3 different levels of membership. One is just a couple bucks if you want to contribute to me being a full-time content creator. Level 2, you're gonna get a shout out from me once a month. And then level 3, you're gonna get a reading once a month with me, which is kind of cool. Great way to stay connected. You're gonna get a reading one of the Fridays every month. You can choose between tarot and astrology, and we take our level 3 members first, so you guys don't have to wait. So it's a pretty good deal. And I'm going to go through my laundry list of people who are supporting the channel, because I always make sure I do that at the beginning of the month. So I want to say thank you to people like Daily Bliss. She actually just joined today. Same thing to Stephanie. She's back. So thank you guys for supporting me. Penny, Ripple, Shara, Smokey, Lisa MC. He sent me orbs. Rosary, Jen, Jenny, Dorothy, Blue, Claire, David, Cece, Laverne, Loida, Darlene, Christine, Queen of Light Bulbs, Erica, Grow Up Together, MK, Victoria Rusk, Thunder Spooks, Blunt Hair, Deanna, Enchanted Crossroads, Sharon, Steve, Paula, Angela, Willow, Emma, Taliba, Jackie, Jessica Martinez, and Susan Wexler. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting my channel and making it possible for me to be a full-time content creator. And I hope to see all of you guys here this month for your readings. Well, if this is your first time getting a reading, welcome. I appreciate your patience. We're gonna do the readings in the order that they are received. We already have like a dozen or so people, so if you know you wanna get a reading, get in the queue. We will close the window at some point, so if you wanna make sure you get a reading, you guys can send your donations. You'll hear me call a couple names out at a time. This is me just letting you guys know that you're on deck for a reading, so I will stop intermittently throughout the readings, give you the list of the updated list of who's paid. So I'll do that first before we get started. But I just want to say hi to everybody and say hi to people like Deanna, Christine, Lisa, Christina. What's up, Jessica? I hope you figured that out. I have no idea, but hopefully you figured it out. Daily Bliss joined. Stephanie's back. What's up, Rosary? Hey, Savannah. And who else do we have? What's up, Danielle? Sonia's here. Hey, Sonia. Hey, Kelly. Hey, Leah. And yeah, so let's go ahead and let's see what we got going on here for you guys this evening. So for my level 3 memberships, I've got Ripples, Deanna, Christine, Danielle, Daily Bliss, Rosary, and then trying to see if Jessica is able to get in there to join memberships. Let me know if you do, although it'll probably tell me that you joined your memberships. It'll alert me on the chat. And then in the queue, I've got Arum, Christina, Alyssa, Queen of Light Bulbs. Let's see, is there anybody else that popped in there? And Kelly Lee. So that is who I have so far. So if you heard your name, then you are in the queue. And at some point, we'll put a countdown and let you guys know how much longer we have. Just also one other thing before we get started for you guys, just so you know, there are horoscopes that are out for the month of July. If you guys haven't already seen them, check it out. All 12 signs is live. And if you haven't seen the new moon in Cancer video, that's also out as well. So if you want to stay up and up with what's kind of going on right now. We've also got a special that's still going through, I think, like the end of the weekend. We have the presidential election webinar that I did. That's like 4 hours long. We talk about all of the different candidates, all the different scenarios, like Trump going to jail, things involving whether or not Biden will step down, and the other candidates that I think have potential to possibly kind of still get in the race. What it's looking like for the future of the United States for their 2024 solar return, as well as inauguration day transits and transits leading into 2025. So if you have any questions about that, you have any concerns, shoot me an email, or you can leave me a comment on any of my social media. If you want to get like a little bit of a sneak peek, if you didn't already see the 4th of July fireworks video, I actually go in depth and talk about 3 major aspects taking place in the United States chart in the month of July. So make sure you guys check that out as well. That's one of my newest lectures that I have on my website. It's on sale for $17.76. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. We're gonna start first with Silk, and then we'll take, Ripples, and then we'll take Deanna and Christine. So you guys are all on deck right now. All right, so Ripples sent me an email. Thanks, Ripples. They said, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the new moon in Cancer, potential impact on me given the conjunction of my natal Saturn. I'm experiencing new health challenges in what my body tolerates consuming and trying to manage my day-to-day routine more effectively. I have RA, Saturn in the 6th. It has often caused difficulties with maintaining my routines, including work. Are there positive aspects to support seeking new medical professions and exercise routine during this new moon? All right, so basically taking a look at Ripple's chart, the new moon is in the 6th house, all right, which is health, habits, routine. So a good time to be really focused on, this stuff is when we see either a new moon in the 6th house, or we see some positive aspect that's going on between the 6th house ruler and Saturn. So the truth is that we do see that. That's one of the nicer aspects of the new moon that's going to be taking place like now. Okay, so you guys have pretty much until tomorrow to do your moonifesting. But it's interesting that it's very close to Saturn. So obviously Saturn rules your chart, Ripples. The moon rules your 7th house of other people, as well as your 6th house of help and caretakers. The moon can be about your emotional health. It can be about your digestion. It can be about your dietary habits. So having a new moon in your 6th house off the bat already kind of says like you're really focused on paying attention to your emotions and the impact that your emotions play in your health and your daily routine. Like your health can influence your emotions, and also your emotions can really influence your productivity. So a lot of what you have already said. Obviously having Saturn in its fall in this house, and it's retrograde at a 12, means that there can be like blocked or stopped emotions or invisible emotional things that are hindering you that can impact your health. And this is obviously ruled by the moon, and you've got transit Jupiter actually coming into conjunction with your moon. So we've got a new kind of cycle beginning in your health zone. We've got Jupiter getting ready to transit your moon, which can be an indication of healthier habits that are kind of coming in through some, potential kind of hobbies or things. Like when I think of your moon At 15 degrees Gemini, I think of breath work and breathing techniques. Something that's pretty common that I see with like Saturn in Cancer or Saturn on the moon or Saturn in the 4th house is feeling constricted in the chest and like the inability to like breathe and like the impact that that can have on you emotionally, and then you feel stiff and you feel stuck. So I really feel like breath work would be helpful. I think that it would probably be a good idea for you to consider like maybe looking at like a breath work workshop or an online group or something like that, because Jupiter rules your 11th house of other people. And it can be something that can be fun. It can be like a hobby because of the Moon-Jupiter conjunction that's taking place. This new moon does trine transit Saturn that is in your 2nd house right now. It would be your whole sign 3rd house, which is also why I said it would be a good time to consider some kind of breath work. But obviously Saturn rules your chart. So this is also kind of healthier habits, support coming from other people. Venus could be teachers and practitioners that are kind of helping you feel more safe and secure in your body, more confident. And also this can be about making some changes in terms of what you're consuming. So obviously Saturn in the 6th house at a 12 does make me feel like this may be about kind of limiting alcohol consumption, paying attention to your sleep habits and your sleep schedule. And this can also be about how you're making dietary changes and you're cutting things out of your diet and the positive impact that that actually plays in your health. Something that I will say is that like the next big lunation that we're going to have in 2 weeks is going to be a full moon on July the 21st, and that's going to be right on your ascendant. So it's possible that the intentions that you're setting with this new moon is like really, you're starting to actually see some of the results as early as about 2 weeks from now when we have that full moon, because that's going to represent some kind of completion and feeling like you have the capability to really feel like you're in control and you're making the necessary changes that you need to make moving forward. That particular full moon is also going to trine both Mars and Uranus in your 4th house, which makes me feel like this is going to be about emotionally kind of cleaning house, maybe organizing, making some rearrangements of your home or your kitchen space. So likely some of the new habits that you kind of set intentions for with this new moon, it does bring about some kind of significant change that will be happening within your home and the emotional impact that that will have on you. I love going and looking for, new practitioners or new hobbies. But one thing that I would really say is like, don't underestimate how much your emotions are playing a role in your physical health ailments. Like water, bathing, soaking, baths, washes, all of that. Saturn at 12 degrees has like a very strong Pisces signature. And if you notice, even your Saturn is in opposition to Mars. It's not exact, but it's within 10 degrees. And so Mars represents your mind. It represents how you think, and Mars in the 12th house can be kind of anxious, and also it can have some challenges revolving around calming down. Usually people with Mars in the 12th house, they like vapor, they like smoking, they like anything that is going to, kind of like create like a haze or like a lighting effect that also makes them feel a little bit more relaxed. So I'm wondering, like with this particular new moon that is in opposition to Mars, if this is also about saying, I'm going to quit some of these things, right? I'm going to drink more water. I'm not going to drink alcohol. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to quit vaping. Like there can be something else there, and it would be really about kind of clearing out or cleaning up the lungs, right? But I think it's a wonderful new moon for setting these intentions, and you're going to want to look to the full moon to see in about 2 weeks some of the impacts that you have. And a lot of this is going to be about feeling like you're more in control of your body and you're able to process change better without kind of panicking. And then the other thing is this will become a full moon 6 months from now. And when it does, I think it's in January, it'll be conjunct Mars. So I feel like this is possibly going to lead to you feeling like by then, you are working out more. Maybe you're doing some kickboxing or self-defense, or maybe you're doing some competitive swimming, or maybe, there's something else that you're doing that's like taking it to the next level. So just some food for thought. That particular full moon is also going to trine your Jupiter and your Venus, as this new moon does right now. So there's going to be lots of opportunity to regain some sense of feeling like, like you're not as secure of yourself, right? Like you're going to have more confidence if you really work with this new moon cycle. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Ripples. Hope you're feeling better, sending you lots of good healing vibes. Okay, so we've got Deanna. Thank you. Happy new moon to you too. Okay, so let's see what Deanna has to say. All right, I've been getting the vibe the Irishman is thinking about a deeper commitment, which is great. Is it wise to bring it up while he is over this month? Ooh. All right, so if you guys have been following Deanna's story, I've been talking to her since before she met this guy that she's connected to in Ireland, and she's been doing a lot of back and forth with him, staying with him, and he's been visiting her. So I think a lot of this is the story of like Uranus kind of going through your 10th house, and also the love story that's been happening because it's 5 houses away from your Sun and your Venus. Probably, you know, when I think of like major conclusions or big decisions or kind of changing points in relationships for you, I think about the transits involving both Saturn as well as Uranus, because we don't play favorites. We will look at the modern and also the traditional rulers. So Saturn's retrograde in the 8th house, which basically, in my opinion, especially because your descendant is at a 20, which means he's re-evaluating the relationship and what needs to change and how you guys can actually grow closer together. But also it might be a reevaluation of finances and resources and what changes he needs to make financially in order to feel like he could be more secure when it comes to actually merging together and being able to build a life together, right? Then we look at Uranus, and Mars is getting ready to come into conjunction with Uranus pretty soon in your 10th house, which may mean that there is like a sudden kind of like uptick in opportunities to kind of hit fast forward in your relationship, and it can become very shocking and surprising, but very exciting and very public. So I see all of that happening in your chart. One thing I would say that you're going to want to watch as a Leo rising is going to be probably the full moon that's going to happen next month. And I'll show that to you. And that's going to be in your 7th house of relationships. So it's going to bring some type of like completion or conclusion or putting a real spotlight on your relationship. This is, on one hand, I think just generally, this is like the full moon where it's like where the wheels fall off in the world, right? Because we're going to see lots of shocking and surprising things happening because it's going to oppose a Mercury cazimi and it's going to square Uranus. And intuitively, I feel like for you, because Mercury and the Sun is in your 1st house, if there is some kind of, you know, proposal, that Sun Mercury actually means that you were kind of like already anticipating it, or you feel like it was coming, or maybe you feel like you had a hunch that he was going to ask and like you knew. But it also is retrograde over your natal Saturn, which means that this can be you going like, oh my gosh, like we're going to the next phase, you know, and you being like, is this what I want? You know, some sense of really reevaluating, well, what does this mean for me and like my freedom and my relationship to myself? So one thing that I like to do is I also like to look at other aspects. And, you know, something that is happening in your chart is that, you know, Saturn is retrograding back into your 7th house. So that basically means over the next several months between now and November, when it goes direct, you're re-evaluating where you stand in relationships with other people, and that can be really positive because Saturn is going to be coming into a sextile with your Sun, which is the chart ruler. So this means that while they're kind of like integrating, getting ready, preparing, getting more serious, it can actually bode very well for a commitment. I have a feeling that probably sometime around the full moon is when this is going to get kicked up. You talking to him about it, you're going to want to do it probably when there's a positive aspect between the Sun and Saturn. So when we look at what's going on with the chart right now, the Sun is coming into a trine with Saturn over the next couple of days. So I don't know when you're going to see him, but we will see the Sun at 19 degrees. This will be on July the 10th. Form a trine with Saturn in the 8th house. And I see this as you being like, I have a hunch, maybe you have a dream, or there's something else that kind of comes up. So if you're seeing him on the 11th, it's close enough. The Sun will still be trine Saturn. So you definitely could, if that's something that you wanted to do. What you're not going to want to do is when you start seeing like the sun coming into an opposition with Saturn. So let's say, you know, you don't ask him. I would say then you want to kind of wait and see what happens right around that full moon that's going to be taking place in August. And that's another window that's a very short window because the sun is then going to start coming into an opposition with Saturn. And that's going to be happening in September. And even then, you know, the sun in the second house is my money, my resources, what I'm, you know, investing, what I'm spending. And it's opposing, you know, Saturn that is in your 8th house. And then you're going to have an eclipse that's going to be in September. So there is going to be this theme revolving around, you know, my finances and your finances and, you know, how we're going to be able to continue to kind of keep going back and forth and seeing each other, or where we're talking about or discussing kind of building more stability into the future with your relationship. So I do feel like, yeah, I would stick to the dates that I gave you. If you want to do it when you see him, great. If not, you can definitely do that closer to the full moon. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of a surprise, because if he does do it around then, that Kazemi makes me feel like you're going to be like, yeah, I had a feeling I knew it, you know? She says, we're going to a wedding on 9/7. But also, you know, progressions and other things will kind of show that in your chart. And we'd have to kind of like look at that. But the other thing that I think about is how there's going to be another full moon that's going to take place in the fall. It's going to be the one in Taurus, which is going to be conjunct Uranus, oppose the sun, and it's going to square the ascendant and the descendant. So that's also like November of 2024. So both of the fixed full moons, both the one in Aquarius and the one that's also going to be in Taurus, these are going to be like major turning points, I think, for your relationships, in my opinion. So you'll have to let me know what happens. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, I have Christine and then Danielle, and then we're gonna have Daily Bliss. Thank you. All right, so let's pull up Christine. I know that she asked a question. Let's see if I can find you. There we go. All right, so what did Christina? She said, hey Candace, cashing on my monthly 7/26/1980. How will this new moon in Cancer affect me the most? All right, let's take a look. Let's see. Those of you guys who are just checking in, you want to get a reading, scan the QR code. You can get in the queue before we close it down. All right, so Christine's a Scorpio rising. She has got her natal sun in Cancer and her moon is in Capricorn, and she wants to know how this new moon in Cancer is going to be affecting her. All right, well, if you guys have been watching since the beginning, we're still kind of experiencing the new moon together, so good time to set your intentions. So the new moon was at 14 degrees of Cancer. The new moon actually took place in your Placidus 8th house, so it may kind of sound similar to the Sagittarius rising horoscope. Basically, a new moon in the 8th house is about getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, just to put it very simply. There is definitely much more of an emphasis on joint resources, intimacy, vulnerability. This can also be about kind of karmic entanglement. This can be about healing, overcoming fear. Cancer is very much about nurturing, and it can also be about family. And the 8th house can be about changes and transformation. So think of like financial changes in the home, emotional changes that you're going through in relation to your family, you know, financing and transformations of your home as well. That can like all kind of factor into this. So the new moon in itself, if we look at the degree, was the closest to your natal Mercury. And Mercury is the ruler of your 8th house. So it looks like you're kind of in tune to how can I make changes when it comes to my mind, when it comes to communication. This is ruled by the moon, and obviously the moon is in opposition. So it's kind of even more so, I think, furthering that. And it's basically saying, in order to make changes of the mind, we need to kind of see maybe we're too rigid with our thought process or our communication style. Obviously, the moon in Capricorn can be a little challenging or a little difficult when it comes to expressing itself, or kind of like being vulnerable, or having some sense of, openness with its feelings. Are we having issues getting the chart up? I'm not seeing the chart that's popping up on the live. So one of the things that'll probably come up is that it's highlighting like your natal challenge when it comes to communication and expressing. And sometimes when Mercury's in the 8th house, it's kind of cautious to say something or like put itself out there. So the new moon is basically saying dip into your intuition, focus on where you're open to making changes and being vulnerable to kind of better connect with other people. Now, the new moon was in a trine to Saturn in your 4th house, so it definitely does speak to your emotions, your feelings, your family, things involving the past. And simultaneously, it is kind of coming into a trine with Uranus, but it's trining your ascendant. So wow, look at this water trine. 8th house to the 4th house to the ascendant. So this is a great time to be setting intentions for change. This is also great for psychic development, intuitive development, listening to your intuition, making changes to your home, making changes to your body. All of this is 12th house to your sun in Leo. So, you could listen to your Leo horoscope and it'll definitely very much resonate, where it's about like doing spiritual work and having kind of time to yourself and all that fun stuff. This also squares your Mars and your Pluto. So it definitely feels a little uncomfortable. As a Scorpio rising, you'll hear that that's in your whole sign 12th house, but actually it's in your 11th Placidus. So I feel like there can be some emotions coming up revolving around making changes to your goals and relationships. It can also mean changes to some of your friendships, and it does kind of bring up some vulnerabilities within this particular new moon. Sextiles to your midheaven and also to planets in your 4th house is great. It does mean that it's also helping you improve things involving your career, and also like making changes or transformations to your joint resources. I like this new moon to really focus on healing. It can also be about getting in touch with your inner self. This can also be a wonderful time where maybe this is going to be about joint investments because it's so close to the ruler of your 8th house. And there can be some transformative conversations that you can have maybe with relatives. Cancer is a feminine sign, so it could be like sisters, it could be aunts, it could be cousins, but the opposition to the moon means that through being kind of vulnerable and open and expressing your emotions, you're going to be able to kind of break through some of these limitations maybe that you've had with some relatives at a distance. And obviously sextiles to your 7th house are really nice too. So that does kind of open up the pathway to like better relating to other people. But yeah, if you listen to your horoscope, you're probably going to resonate more with like the Sag rising, because this is taking place mostly in the 8th house. And I'm watching like Jupiter get ready to come into your 7th house soon, a Mars Uranus. So there's definitely a lot of changes in relationships. I feel like it's about upgrades and kind of like relationships evolving very quickly, and how it requires you to be more open to vulnerability and like talking about things that might seem scary, but like is necessary in order to kind of better relate to other people. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Christine. We have Danielle, and then we'll do Daily Bliss and Stephanie. All right, there we go. Let's see. All right. And actually, I think Danielle, yeah, I think she sent that to me through here. You're welcome. David's here. He says, smash those like buttons. He's the hype man for me today. All right, so we've got Danielle here, May 1st, 81. She says, hey, Candace, any news on past loves returning? Missing love, haven't spoken since August 23. Thanks. All right, so let's take a look. So she's got this new moon taking place in her 1st house. So that can definitely be more reflective, more emotional, more sensitive. And this is kind of interesting because this particular new moon, obviously in Cancer, is very close to Venus. And so Venus rules her 4th house, which is about past loves. Also, this new moon is in a square to the north and the south node. So there's this sense of, okay, what's next when it comes to my relationship with people from the past, and also feeling like I have more control maybe of the future. And it is in a square to Pluto, so it can bring up some intense feelings about some of these people. Now, relationships for you are more Saturn-based. So Saturn is currently now in Pisces, and it's retrograde over your midheaven. And it's going to go from your 10th house into your 9th house. And we need to see some kind of an aspect between Saturn and the moon, either a transit moon or natal moon. So Saturn will start coming into conjunction, obviously 2025 and 2026, but not yet. So there's no direct kind of relationship between the moon and Saturn throughout these transits. So we have to kind of see, well, what's happening with this new moon? It is in a trine to Saturn. So that does mean that maybe there is a sense of setting intentions revolving around, okay, what do I love? What do I desire? You know, what am I reflecting on from the past? And how can I better connect with partners? And get them maybe, you know, Saturn retrograde at 19 degrees. Are they going to reconsider? You know, are they going to return? A lot of the Saturn retrograde is actually about relationships and like the people who show up for you versus like the people who kind of go like ghost or MIA. People returning would have to be like a retrograde in the 7th house or, you know, an aspect with Saturn retrograde. But I actually feel like it's much more likely to be connected to the eclipses that are going to be happening more so in the fall. So when we see, for example, the next eclipse come through, the next solar eclipse, we're going to have a solar eclipse around October 2nd. And that's going to be within about 7 degrees of your Saturn, okay? So you're the moon, they're Saturn, you've got a new moon solar eclipse conjunct your Saturn and your Jupiter. So this can be an indication that there is a connection of somebody from the past. South node, 4th house, past. So it can be brewing up until this point. Now, what I will say is that, you know, eclipses we feel several weeks in advance, and sometimes we have an eclipse and then we see the impacts of it happen weeks later. So really it's going to depend on like other people's astrology, but I will kind of put 2 and 2 together and say that solar eclipse plus what will then inevitably be a full moon in Taurus, I think is going to, the full moon in Taurus as we get into Scorpio season is probably going to kind of give you your answer. That's probably what you're going to find right around the time in November when Saturn's going direct, that there is a possibility of a reconnection. Because you've got the full moon, you've got the solar eclipse, and then you're going to have Saturn going direct. So you're going to have 3 things that kind of like trigger all of these things at once. Something else I think about also is like, you know, you are getting ready to have a full moon now in 2 weeks. And that's going to be in Capricorn. So for a Cancer rising, you know, it's going to be the second one in the 7th house, but it's going to be at a critical turning, you know, 29-degree turning point. And it's also going to be conjunct Pluto. So this could be a bit bittersweet for you. It could mean that you're like, it's getting to that point where you're like, oh my God, now or never, or you know, maybe you're feeling like there is some stuff that is kind of presented to you or exposed about your relationship with this person, and it shows you with some kind of clarity, like what the problem is, what the challenge is, because Pluto can represent kind of crisis. For a Taurus, this is a really friendly, you know, new moon, a full moon. So I don't think it's as challenging for your sun as it is for your rising sign. So you might want to kind of think about like, what happened in 2020, and you know, we saw Saturn kind of go in and out of those late degree of Capricorn. Do you remember that year? That should have been like a critical turning point for a relationship. You could have felt like it was back and forth and then something split. Same thing with Pluto this last year going in and out of Capricorn. So, you know, the full moon being at 29, Pluto's going to retrograde. It's very obvious that there's some unfinished business, and like all these 29s feels like it's very critical and that it needs to be kind of like wrapped up and like you need your answer. And then you're going to see the South node hit your Saturn. So it's like all of the transits are kind of saying the same thing. It's like, okay, there needs to be one last final showdown between you and another person. And I would say somewhere around September 5th, when you see the moon and Venus and the South Node all come into conjunction with Saturn, okay? And it's like, okay, dude, what's it gonna be? Like, you know, like kind of, yeah, like make a decision or get off the pot, you know? Like it's either gonna happen or it's not gonna happen. And that's what's so kind of agitating maybe about having your 7th house Lord in the 4th house, because it means that people come back and like relationships can get better when you're older, or people will return to you at a later time. You have Saturn retrograde, so you're moving through karma in regards to relationships with people. And at least you have an exalted Saturn. Your Saturn's very strong and it's conjunct Jupiter. So this means that people don't really come back to you until like, you know, you guys are a little bit older and wiser and they've worked through some of their issues, and then they, you know, can come back and then it can be a strong relationship, but only if they've worked through it. Yeah, I understand. And also Saturn's in opposition to your moon. And so much of your chart is about recognizing and realizing, like, you know, really tuning into that moon and being like, yeah, I need to be more assertive. And there are times that I have to kind of like basically put on my boss hat and be like, this isn't working, or this isn't good enough, or like, this isn't fair to me. And oppositions can represent actual distance. So it's about actually not looking at it as, well, when is he coming back? When is he going to be here? Looking at it as like, if he comes back, he needs to have kind of cleaned up his act a little bit, and like he needs to respect me, and there needs to be a sense of like boundaries and like an understanding in the relationship, that I'm not just going to sit around and like just wait for him, or that I'm going to be the other woman. Because you got a lot of planets in the 11th house that indicate there is static that comes from, you know, lovers and stuff of other people. So you may date people that are like, oh, there's this person, but it's my friend. And then they wind up kind of being together. So this tells me that you need some boundaries within the relationships with people, and being a little bit more, I think, maybe direct with them, and not being afraid of losing them. Looking at it more like, no, I have to create this foundation so that way I'm not kind of feeling left and kind of abandoned. And you create that boundary, and hopefully they respect it, you know? But my goodness, the fall is on like Donkey Kong. So I would say like pretty much September into the more or less like the better part of like November. This is when you're going to see some of this stuff kind of shaping up. Just try not to break when you have this next full moon in Capricorn, because you're probably going to feel like, oh my God, I can't take it anymore. You know, I'm just going to like call this person up and tell them what's up. When in reality, they may still be going through their process of like detoxing and kind of getting rid of some of their bad behavior before they can actually be somebody who can really kind of show up in a relationship the way that you would hope that they would, and meet you halfway, you know? So hopefully that's helpful for you. I've heard this from all of my Cancer risings. I feel for all of you guys so much. You guys are all kind of getting jerked around with like people who are just still not doing their work. All right, so we have Daily Bliss, who just joined. So what's up, Daily Bliss? And then we'll have Stephanie and Rosary, who are on deck. And readings are now closed, so thank you guys for signing up. I appreciate it. Hello. All right, let's look at your question here. Let's see, what did Bliss say? Hey, Candace, cashing in on my monthly reading. Okay, 6/24/81, Mexico City. Looking into applying for a loan and also thinking about creating a profile for a dating app, money, love, career. Well, which one would you like me to look at for you? Which one seems most significant to me? Let's see. Well, I would say I can see all of the things getting triggered. Oh, 3:15, thank you. I can see all of the things getting triggered, but to be honest with you, something that seems most significant at the moment looks like it's going to be more involving what's going to be happening regarding your career, because you got a lot of planets getting ready to move into your 10th house. I will just say this. First of all, it's about to be your Venus return.
Venus is at 23 degrees Cancer right now. You're 2357 natally. So today, tomorrow, pay attention to what's going on with your love life, because your Venus return is like the birthday for your Venus. And you've got Venus that rules the 7th and it's in the 9th, which means like you meet people who are culturally different. You meet them at airports, you meet them far away, or you meet them in places when you're traveling. So there's going to be lots of opportunity for upgrades with relationships, just with your Venus return and Saturn trining your Venus. And the Mars-Uranus action in your 11th is talking about something kind of speeding up and trying to maybe meet somebody in a quick or unconventional way. So like you want an online date, that's fine. When you see a trine to your Venus, which is more next year, there's going to be like more stability in the relationship department. Not that it's not worth looking right now, but planets going into your 10th house, a Mercury retrograde in your 10th house, eventually a Mars retrograde in your 10th house. I can see there's a lot of things that are kind of getting worked out in your career. So what I would say is that I would be like all hands on deck the next like 2 months, because you're going to have a number of planets going there, which means you're going to get more recognition. You can have more power revolving around the direction of your career. There can definitely be more opportunities to socialize and network with people. I think what's challenging for you right now is that you have Pluto on your south node. And you'll hear as a Scorpio rising, this is in your 4th house, so it can mean that you're like, okay, I'm, wanting to move, or I'm having issues with neighbors, or there's drama with my family or with a sibling. But it's in your 3rd house, which means that you're really focused, because Pluto rules your chart on the south node, in releasing and letting go of something, or opening up the mind, or tapping into your intuition, or somehow using psychology to be able to change and transform something with application. So maybe you're considering developing an app because of that. All the while, Pluto's trining your Venus and your Saturn. So that's nice. That means that you're creating a network. And it's also trining, or has been trining, Jupiter in your 8th house. So that's also good for finding ways to be able to bring more money in from other people. And that can also be something that you can sell, or having some kind of like, something that's digital that you can basically sell to people. So creating a dating app, sure, but this can also be good for bringing more money in. This can be good for business. This could be good for new things that you're thinking about or developing. 3rd house can be websites. It could be media. It could be YouTube channels. It could be blogs. So I really feel like this is about tapping into the power of communication and connecting with people, and spending like the next month or so, as planets go into your 10th house, kind of strategizing how to make changes in regards to the direction of your career. So you're going to see that that's going to be happening, at the beginning of August, and then you'll have a Mars retrograde there as well. So for a lot of Scorpio risings, there's a lot of like, well, was I doing something online? Do I want to go back to it? There's also a lot of, well, do I go back to an old job? Do I go and relaunch something that I used to do? I have an Etsy shop that I haven't fully developed. So, it's great. That's great. When I think about crafting and things that you make, I think about your 2nd house. And your 2nd house ruler is Jupiter, and it's going to hit Mars in Gemini. So yeah, something that you kind of potentially want to sell, or something that you want to kind of complete, so that way you have something you can sell to people. I would say that's great. I wouldn't launch it during the retrograde, but I would say if you want to do something like when Mercury is coming into a trine with the North Node, so the 7th through the 9th of July, I would kind of get back into it while Mercury's in your 10th trining the North Node, and I would kind of get into the swing of like making the updates and getting everything ready. If you feel like you want to turn it on, or you want to update it, or you want to open it up, you can. But be mindful that it gets a little bit more challenging once we get to like the 15th of July on. So if you can't do it by then wait till Mercury turns retrograde after the new moon. And I would say you can get back to work on it at the beginning of August, and you could spend August creating, products, getting everything ready. And then I would say probably a good idea is to wait until the moon is in your 7th house around August 23rd. and you can work with the moon trine the sun, and you can let people know, okay, I'm back in action, I'm ready to go, or this thing has now been launched and now it's ready. You know, that's gonna be better astrology for you to do that. Even though it's a retrograde, it's fine. It's about returning, you know, and completing it and finishing it. If you want to really wait, you can wait until you have another new moon. That's going to be, it looks like, in your 10th house. And this new moon is going to slightly square Jupiter, but that's okay. That just might mean that, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you've made or you've created or if you've invested time or money into products and you're like, okay, now I need to get it sold. And that's not going to be until closer to September the 24th. Things are getting a little challenging, guys. You really, you know, those of you guys, I know there's a lot of people who are just hanging out watching. So I know a lot of you guys watch this on Friday nights because you learn astrology. You really want to invest in understanding and learning the lunar transits. Like, do yourself a favor and go and get a good lunar planner. Go and get like the Lulels, or however you pronounce it, lunar planner, the daily planner. It'll give you all the transits. It'll tell you when the moon is void. But also some of the new and the full moons that we are going to have for the rest of the year are going to be very tricky. There's a lot of full moons that I'm seeing that aspect Pluto, they aspect Saturn, they're aspecting, you know, Uranus. So your traditional, it's a full moon, launch something, may not necessarily go according to plan. So you're going to have to really look at some better transits to do some of this stuff. And simultaneously, some of the new moons actually are really good for starting things, but you may want to find a different transit to actually like launch things. So yeah, go and look at some of the next lunations that we're going to have between now and, man, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, pretty much the rest of the year. I mean, even after the eclipses, we're going to have some crazy ones in the fall. So your traditional launch during a full moon does not necessarily apply. And then we've got, you know, Mars retrograde and other shit going on at the end of the year. So you guys are going to have to either get really good with election astrology, or you're going to get familiar with some of the forecasts and start looking at some of the lunar transits. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful for you, Daily Bliss. I hope you get back in the swing of things. That gives you some insight. Yes, relationship stuff can grow, but I'd be more focused on business with some of this stuff, okay? Good luck. We have Stephanie, she's back. And then we have Rosary. And then I'm going to pop on over to people who have signed up in the queue. So thank you guys for your patience. Let's pull up Stephanie's chart. What's up, Steph? Welcome back. How are you doing? And you guys are being instructed to follow me on BTV Astro. If you guys want to see all my Astro shit posting, my crazy antics, go and follow me on X. All right, so Stephanie's here. Let's see what her question was. I want to cash in on solar return. Okay. Where are you currently living? Life is crazy post Saturn return. Yep. Omaha, Nebraska. All right, let's take a look. Happy belated. All right, so we've got the solar return that I'm peeking at here. Gemini rising, 17 degrees. Obviously, the sun's always going to return back to where it is. This is her birthday chart. And then the moon is on the ascendant. Girl. One thing that I would say is that this is a chart that's ruled by Mercury. Okay? And Mercury is in the 3rd house, which is strong. And it's in opposition to Pluto. So it looks like the challenge here, because it's technically, yeah, it's the chart ruler, some challenging communication themes this year. Mercury in the 3rd is, what do I want? What do I love? You know, what am I enjoying? This can also be about cars. This could be about communications. This could be about relationships with siblings and extended family. And Pluto in polar opposite to that means that there's some intense communication going on. And it can also be a little sticky with the houses that Mercury rules. So Mercury rules the 1st house of self and body. and the 5th house of, children, lovers, romantic partners, creative endeavors. So it looks like it can be kind of difficult expressing what the heart wants, right? And she said, I'm dealing with car issues. So Mercury is generally vehicles or anything that moves. And then the 3rd house is vehicles, and the opposition of Pluto means problems and things that ultimately could hinder your ability to travel more often, or it could be kind of costly, or you're like, I can't go on far trips, or I'm postponing like major travel because I'm having to pay for car repairs. So that's in your chart. The other thing is that the sun is in the 2nd house, which is actually strong for finances. And the sun is the ruler of the 4th house. So this does seem like there is some sense of strength and feeling more secure, especially when it comes to home living and cost of living stuff. And Venus is in that house as well. So generally a solar return with the sun and Venus in the 2nd house is a year where you're really getting clear about what you value, what you need. And this can be a year where you actually make more money. Obviously, the moon is also the ruler of the 12th house, the 2nd house, and it's in the 12th, but it's kind of on the ascendant. So I would be more concerned with things like, am I losing, sleep over worrying about financial situations, moon in the 12th relating to the 2nd. And the moon is conjunct Jupiter, which is considered actually a very fortuitous kind of aspect. So I do feel like this is about doing meditations and affirmations and maybe like mantras and stuff revolving around abundance and things kind of like, because Jupiter is positive, right? And it can also be about offerings in the 12th house. And I would say this is about being like, okay, I'm going to burn a little incense for Jupiter, on Thursdays, or maybe Mondays for the moon. And I burn some abundance incense, or maybe I do a meditation and a visualization on abundance. And you're reminding yourself that, finances are healthy, money flows easily to you, that the universe provides for you, that it's got your back. This is how you kind of negate some of this difficult Mercury-Pluto stuff, because you're working with the spiritual kind of universe has my back, 12th house. You're being optimistic about it, that money is coming to you, and it's tapping into a trine with Pluto. So this might be a really good year to like go and read some Esther Hicks, go and learn about the vortex, kind of like getting into that vortex of belief and what's actually coming your way. Reading a book or listening to something that can help change your mind and also make you realize that, Pluto can be something that kind of has power over you, or something that can empower you. And then simultaneously, this is also sextiling Mercury, and it's helping you be a little bit more optimistic and positive, like moving forward in regards to some of these changes that you're going through financially. In my opinion, Moon and Jupiter being on the ascendant, your ascendant is at a 17, which is a Leo degree. Mercury is the ruler of your 5th house. It can be some difficult communications maybe that you're having with children, or, having a difficult time communicating with romantic partners. But this is also some pregnancy stuff, because Moon Jupiter on the ascendant can be like a pregnancy indicator. Obviously you have free will, okay, but take that into consideration, that can be talking about a fertile energy and some kind of growth. But it also can mean being more intuitive. It also can mean being more optimistic. It can mean new beginnings in regards to your home or your living situation. I don't have the point of fortune up because most people don't know what that is, but if it's conjunct Venus, and Venus is at a 19, and Venus also is in a trine to Saturn, this bodes well for strong relationships with clients and being able to kind of like make decent money. Jupiter also rules the 7th, and it's in the 12th conjunct the moon. So it can mean that there is some kind of like unseen relationship that's coming in this year. So I don't know what your relationship status is, but Jupiter usually is a foreigner, and with Jupiter's connection to your 7th house and it's in the 12th, it means that there might be some kind of like unexpected connection that you have with like somebody who's culturally different, or, from a foreign place. And the conjunction to the moon can also be something that's like really kind of sweet. But usually the 8th house, you don't see it coming. So yeah, but it can be a little bit of like a unexpected kind of romantic affair, because your Jupiter is at an 8. And the moon's at a 9. So look for somebody who's tall, speaks another language, maybe has longer hair. That might be somebody who kind of pops in with some of those aspects. But yeah, I would just say it's more mind over matter this year and focusing more on how you're able to kind of focus on the power of manifesting rather than worrying about things that may happen or what's kind of going wrong, you know? Anyway, you should have noticed this right around your birthday as these aspects were kind of setting up. So hopefully it was a good one for you. All right, and we've got Rosary. You're welcome. All right, so let's take a look here. And I'll do Rosary, and then I'll give you guys the updated list for who I have, so everybody who got in will know that they got in. She says, I'd like to get my reading for this month. Anything I need to know for the month of July. She is March 17th, 1992, 11:51 a.m. in the Philippines. All right, so we've got a Cancer rising. And essentially, obviously, you know, with a Cancer rising chart, we always want to be aware of what's going on with the moon. So you had this new moon that's in your first house, and it just happened here not too long ago. So you're still in that energy. Actually, like into tomorrow as the moon crosses with Venus, pretty good transit. I would say with the conjunction to Venus and the trine to Saturn, girl, I would go and like take a selfie tomorrow morning, right when the moon is kind of meeting with Venus, because you'll probably get like a really nice photo of yourself. And a new moon in the first house is focusing on your own goals, and whether that's how you look, how you feel, if there's new intentions that you want to be setting for yourself and kind of prioritizing yourself, this is really what you would like to do during this time. And the new moon is going to trine Saturn in Pisces. Saturn rules relationships, and it's right on your midheaven. So it's about kind of positioning yourself to feel like you have more control over the direction that you're going with your career, or better working with or relating to superiors or people professionally. And the other thing that this does is it also kind of slightly makes a trine to your sun. It's a little wide, but you know, about 12 degrees, but still the moon and Venus are coming into a trine with your sun as well. So I definitely feel like this is kind of indicating that this is about growth and feeling a little bit more stable when it comes to your professional position. I don't know if it's too late to ask, but the June's full moon, the person been dating suddenly says he's not ready for a relationship. Well, that was probably because you had a full moon in your 7th. So right around June 21st, there was a full moon in Capricorn in your 7th house, which means completions or big decisions revolving around relationships. And it looks to me like when that happened, the moon was in opposition to Venus and Mercury. So there could have been like somebody making a decision, and the moon in Capricorn can be challenging because it represents kind of blockages sometimes. And kind of feeling like, yeah, it was denying, you know, Venus and Mercury connection, you know, communicating, loving, that kind of stuff. Even though that's difficult because it was so close to your north node and your descendant, I feel like if that's what happened, then you want to lean into the fact that it did trine your moon and Jupiter. So it means that there was clarity about, you know, moving forward in the future. And also simultaneously, this was trining Mars and other placements in Earth signs. So it was kind of opening the door to be like, okay, well, what does the future hold? If this person is not my person, what's next? Just a heads up, there's another full moon coming. So you'll have a blue moon, so a second full moon in Capricorn. And although this isn't in your 7th house, this will be on the 21st of July, it is still going to be a part of your 7th house. So it does mean some kind of dramatic completion or conclusion in regards to relationships. At least this one sextiles your sun. So it does make you feel a little bit more, I think, empowered, and it feels like you have a little bit more of a sense of direction and authority. But still, a full moon in the 7th house conjunct Pluto might mean that you're feeling like it's still taking you until this time to like get over it. And maybe you're disappointed, or you're feeling like, okay, maybe something doesn't feel complete, or maybe you're questioning whether or not, you know, this is a forever thing. Definitely more difficult for my Cancer risings. And I would say that for a Pisces, this is also about, you know, 11th house to your sun. So it can be about changes with friends, connecting with people socially, having somebody that you can fall back on that can kind of like hear you out and support you and be there for you if you're going through like a difficult breakup. It's going to take a really strong Saturn transit for there to be a really significant aspect in regards to your relationships. And I will say that it doesn't make sense right now, but I'm looking at Saturn coming into conjunction with your Juno and your Sun next year. And Juno represents marriage and partnership. That looks like that's going to be like right around February, March of 25. And then Saturn's going to hit your Sun with Venus actually around April of 2025. So spring of 2025, there's definitely a lot more emphasis on like long-term relationship planning, where things stand in the long term in regards to committed relationships and having conversations about that stuff. Granted, you're also coming into like Saturn and Neptune square your ascendant and your descendant. So for Cancer rising like this, it's going to be a lot of like, I want a new status change. You know, I want to feel like I have a new serious committed partner, or that my life is going in that direction. And you're going to be more focused on making that happen. And there can be some job change stuff as well. So all in all, I would say watch for the next full moon. There may be more clarity in regards to some of those changes in relationships. Certainly with the transits that you have in the spring and also eclipses in Virgo, that's going to be about, you know, you kind of feeling like you're getting to a point where you want clarity and you want to know where your relationships are going, and you're going to want some sense of like commitment. So I can see that happening, but I think that I would just give it a little bit more time and see this as an opportunity to present you with more options kind of going into the spring of next year. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, so let's get into my list. I may have to plug a couple people in here, so let's see what we've got. All right. Looks like a couple people snuck in there. Leah and okay, so here's who I've got. All right, so you guys are the ones that paid that got in. So I've got Arum, I've got let's see, Christina, Alyssa, Queen of Light Bulbs, Kelly, Leah, and Kimberly. So you guys are all of the ones that I have that are going to be my new people. Let me just plug in a couple of these charts really quick here. And I think, do I have Kelly? Let me see. Kelly, I need you to send me your time, please. I have 8/23/91. And if you want a solar return, I need to know where you are now. Oh, it's okay. All right, 4:20 p.m. Got it. You live in Tucson? That's where I'm born. I bet it is hot there right now. All right, and then we've got, let's see, Leah. All right, and then we've got Kimberly. What's up, Kimberly? All right, so I've got everybody kind of plugged in. So let's get started with Arum. Am I saying your name right? Arum? Let me pull your chart up here. All right. All right, 2/18/85, and it looks like that was in Pakistan. So we've got you here, Aquarius rising, Sun in Aquarius, Moon in Aquarius. Okay, cool. Oh my God, you're a little alien. Look at your chart. I've never seen so many Aquarius placements, and also Sun and Mercury at 29 degrees. I love your chart. That is such a cool signature to have. All right. Aquarius full moon on August 19th is making a grand cross in my chart involving my personal planets. Yeah, that's gonna be fireworks. All right, let's pull that up. There we go. And involving personal planets. I love to get your insights and warnings how it can play out so I can be prepared. I also know there will be a solar eclipse on my sun in 2026. Thanks. All right, so, well, first of all, let's look at your annual perfection here. So you're in a Taurus year ruled by Venus. So that's going to be your 4th house, and it's going to square your 4th house. So that's something to consider. Venus is going to post Saturn. So I don't know if you're familiar with annual perfections. You probably know a lot of astrology with all these placements that you have in Aquarius. But if you're in a Venus year and you have a full moon, which you know is going to rock your chart, and Venus is going to be pretty negatively aspected, that's something just to consider, okay? So let's talk about the themes of a full moon. Completion, conclusion, tipping point. This is going to be obviously ruled by Uranus, and it squares Uranus. So yeah, it's going to create a grand fixed cross. But guess what? For the rest of the world, it's going to be a T-square, and I would rather have a grand fixed cross where you've got 4 points than have a T-square where it can be a bit of a problem. The moon is basically in your 1st house. So it means your emotions, your body, your reactions, your behavior, your instincts. That is what's going to play a huge role on what happens. You're kind of born for this. You're used to having Saturn square your Sun and your Mercury, and also your Sun and your Mercury square the North and the South node, which means that so much of your incarnation in this lifetime is to learn about yourself, 1st house, relationship to yourself. Sun rules the 7th, 29 degrees. This is a critical turning point in this lifetime, and it's also conjunct Mercury, which basically means listening to your own intuition, your instincts, and also embracing change. Will this probably be a pretty dynamic full moon? Yeah, because you have so many planets in Aquarius, and also because it's in hard aspect to the modern day ruler. For me, this means that you could just be more emotional, more sensitive, more likely to be impatient. You might feel restless and feel like you want to change in your home or your living situation. And the full moon obviously square Saturn, which is your chart ruler, basically means that you're likely to be at odds with superiors or parents or bosses or something that is making you feel limited. And then the moon square Uranus means that you're emotionally restless and you could be a little bit more temperamental, especially with like roommates and family members on this particular day. I want you to think about what 27 degrees means. Right? It's a Gemini degree. So it means talking about it, communicating, getting it out, working through it. So that's the key here. And 27 or Gemini is also about options and choices. It's do I go left or do I go right? So likely between that degree that's getting triggered and also the square to the nodes means that it's pushing you to make a conscious decision or to react or make a move to get out of feeling kind of like oppressed or limited at work, and to have more freedom and have an opportunity for a breakthrough when it comes to your home, your past, or your emotions. Uranus is in opposition to your Saturn right now, which means that things feel a bit buck wild on the home front. Maybe you feel like there's something unstable in regards to your family or your living situation, while simultaneously Uranus is squaring both your Mercury and also it's coming into a square with your Sun, which means that it's going to cause some disruptions emotionally or on the home front with relationships and other people.
When this particular full moon happens, there's going to be a cazimi taking place that's going to be in the 7th house, which means likely somebody is going to say something that catches you off guard, or there's going to be an unexpected dynamic with a relationship to another person. Leo can be a romantic partner, a younger person. It can also be a child. But this opposition is relational, and it can mean something outside of yourself, is, making you aware of something that you don't see. So somebody might be giving you some feedback or telling you what's up or what they think, or being kind of critical. And then I look at Venus being in the 8th house, where she's not happy in Virgo. And also she's in the 8th house, which can deal about transformations in regards to relationships. In opposition to Saturn, Venus rules family. Venus also rules in-laws. It's also about culture, and it's about travel or separation. So this is kind of saying like, ooh, there's some family drama brewing, and it can mean that you're kind of like, I'm not on the same page with a family member or a partner or a relationship. It's causing disruption with my relationship with your husband. Well, I hate to break it to you, but like, there's more of this coming. And I only say this so you know. But your relationships are ruled by the sun, and Uranus for the next year is still squaring your sun, which means that there is a lot of tension in the home, which is making you feel like you kind of just need to either be free, or you're kind of acting out, or there could be something kind of going on there while Uranus is squaring your sun. And then 2, you're also having a Mercury retrograde in your 7th house when this happens. So there's miscommunications that are kind of brewing with other people. For me, this opposition square Uranus makes me feel like it could be a situation that kind of feels make or break in a relationship, and like people can say things that they can't really take back. And you want to be mindful that that's kind of in the air. And then 3, you're also going to be having Mars turn retrograde actually at 6 degrees later this year, right on your descendant. So like, let's say there's some tension in the relationship. This hits a breaking point around the full moon. And then it's like, somebody's saying, I'm out of here, or I'm leaving. This is going to lead to further challenges, I think, in November when Mars comes into shadow and it starts opposing Pluto. And then you're going to see in December, Mars will actually retrograde right over your descendant. And it's going to be in opposition to your Jupiter and your moon. And Mars is the dispositor of your Venus, right? I'm all about communication and I'm pushing my husband to communicate more. Well, part of this is also, your love language is very different than other people. You've got Mars and Venus conjunct in the sign of Aries. So that's very fierce, very passionate, but that's also somebody that can be sometimes unknowingly a little pushy or aggressive when it comes to relationships. And if you look at your chart, because the sun rules your 7th house and it's in the 1st, at a critical 29 degrees conjunct Mercury, it means that you serve as like the person who's kind of holding up a mirror to some of your partnerships in this life, being like, dude, we're all a little crazy, but like, you're being a little crazy. You're like, these are the things you need to see, or this is what you need to work through. And that's very obvious in your chart. And I think part of the lesson with the retrogrades is that it's really helping you tap more into your kind of instinctual Aquarius energy. That's just like, if you're not going to change, then I'm going to kind of go my own way, or I'm going to have some space. And it's going to keep coming up. So you may want to go and learn about Uranus square your sun. You might want to go and learn about Mars retrograde over your 7th house. I feel like that's going to be a lot more emphasis on whether or not you guys can actually bridge the gaps in the relationship. And Mars in the 7th house is about other people reevaluating their actions and recognizing and realizing that you're like, no, I need there to be change. The beautiful thing about this is that Mars will, kind of be in a trine to the North Node in the 2nd. So it does mean that if you guys can focus on communication, it can help. Sometimes retrogrades in the 7th house, it's important to get like somebody else's perspective. So like working with a therapist or getting a reading or getting some feedback from another person can be really helpful in like helping kind of balance that out, because 7th house is your counselors, your astrologers, your coaches, people like that. So that might be something that you incorporate into this, so that way you're able to kind of get on the same page with what you guys need. And also Pluto is in opposition to your Jupiter, and that can literally be about like you not being as optimistic as you typically are about things. And Jupiter can be about the partnerships and the husband. And this is about your goals and your friends. And you may feel like through some of the dynamic where there's some like toxic behavior and difficult things coming up with a relationship,
it's pushing you in the direction of being like, I'd rather spend time with other people because this is draining. And yeah, it can be like really, really challenging because you'll find yourself taking space from your partner and, you know, being in a situation where you're questioning, you know, like long-term goals and if like the relationship is in alignment for like what you're hopefully trying to build, right? Yeah. Yep. So there's a lot of working parts. You know, sometimes with astrology, you have a transit, and the transit happens over like a week or a month or something, and then it's like you work through it. But when you have other things like this that are at late degrees in the fixed signs and they're going to retrograde and they're going to square and oppose several times, it means that it's going to be a process. And I kind of feel like that full moon is actually going to be the breaking point. Just be mindful of how things are being said and what you guys are expressing with one another. And with a chart like this, yeah, Uranus on your north node and square your sun and your Mercury, like you need out of the house, man. Like you need to be doing other things. Otherwise there's going to be too much tension in the home, and actually it can like bring up some like electrical issues or some like accidents or other things happening in the home. So kind of getting out can be helpful, and bringing more elements of like earth into the home to neutralize that, you know, like crystals and plants and kind of like gridding stuff that can be really helpful for kind of calming down the space a little bit. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you. Good luck. Really, really cool chart. That's like one of the cooler ones I've seen in a long time. All right, we've got Christina. Let's see here, make sure I have the right one. And that was L. Okay. You're welcome. What's up, Christina? Christina says, question regarding money and career. I'm also concerned with my mother's health, recovery from stroke. All right. So she's Scorpio sun, Scorpio rising, moon in Virgo. Sorry to hear about your mom. I think the recovery is going on because Saturn and Neptune are now retrograding in the 4th house. So this is older relatives going through kind of integrating healing themes and, you know, care for a parent, and also issues pertaining to like memory is very Saturn Neptune in the 4th house. Anyway, Jupiter is the ruler of your 4th house, and it is currently going through your 7th house, and it's coming into an opposition with Mercury. So this can represent maybe some tension in communicating with other relatives and family members in regards to mom's health, and that's something you're going to see off and on all year, especially around like August and December as Jupiter squares Saturn and it opposes your Mercury. So there can definitely be some challenges in getting support from other people and getting, you know, clarity about how mom is, what she needs, kind of what's going on, right? The other thing that I would watch for is actually you're going to have that full moon that I was just talking about right on your north node. And for a Scorpio rising chart, obviously you're Scorpio, you're very Scorpio, but you're a late degree Scorpio sun, late degree Scorpio rising. So a lot of this will kind of correlate to the sometimes Sagittarius, especially with the Saturn Neptune in the 4th, but you're going to want to listen to the Scorpio rising horoscope for the full moon in Aquarius next month. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but this is going to be pretty damn important in your chart. Because the full moon is going to be a completion. It's right on your north node, which is kind of destiny, dharma, and it's ruled by Uranus, and it's going to square Uranus. So we have another grand fixed cross that's going to be happening. So just kind of make a note that 18th, 19th, 20th of August looking a little intense in this chart. What is likely to happen is some big completion, conclusion, communication in regards to home and family, and it may throw you off kilter a little bit, because when this full moon comes in, it's going to oppose your 10th house, and something about changes in the direction with work, responsibility, you know, career things. And like I said, it's going to activate this square. So just take it easy that day, stay cool, calm, and collected. It'll be fine, but likely whatever is bringing your attentions to your home or your family is kind of offsetting some other things kind of going on in your chart, right? Now, in regards to your career and money, That's more like Jupiter stuff. Jupiter is coming into conjunction with Mars, and Mars traditionally rules your chart. So something to think about is in August, when Mars and Jupiter come into conjunction, you're going to hear for Scorpio risings, oh, if you have a partner, you're coming into some money, or maybe there is a new business partnership, or there's a new client, maybe you get an inheritance, you have a tax payout, there's some kind of windfall, somebody is very generous and they give you something. This is very likely to happen. And what's unfortunate about this is that because Mercury is the dispositor of Mars and Jupiter in Gemini, and Mercury is going to be retrograde on the South Node, it either tells me one of two things. One is you may have like an old employer call you back and be like, can you come back? Can you work for us? Or, and we'll pay you more. It can mean that you're renegotiating your salary or your job or your benefits with an existing, job. And you may have a little bit more leverage in being like, no, you're going to pay me more, or I want better insurance or whatever, that this will benefit you. Some of the negative things could mean there's a job change and there's a job cut, and then suddenly, you're like, okay, now I need to get unemployment. The eighth house can be other people's money. It can also be savings. It can be loans. It can be inheritances. So somebody else's loss, Mercury rules your eighth house over the South Node, is your gain. And suddenly you find out, okay, my uncle died, or, so-and-so won the lottery, or, you meet a wealthy guy and he's like, don't worry about your job, I'll take care of you. Something like that kind of happens usually when you see some of these different kind of angles that are kind of showing up in your chart. Life will get interesting with Uranus in opposition to your sun. If you're not in a relationship, you'll see people will just kind of pop into your life unexpectedly out of nowhere, and it can definitely change the direction of where you're going with your career, your relationships, what have you. You'll hear many astrologers say with Jupiter in your eighth house, at some point this year, you will get some kind of money that is owed to you. And that's because Jupiter rules your second house. So this full moon lights your chart up like a Christmas tree. And I'm hoping that it's the opportunity to negotiate and get a better paying job, or maybe you're getting reimbursed for something that you didn't think you were going to get reimbursed for, or maybe, you suddenly become you're in charge of, a relative's estate or money, and, you're getting paid to do it. Something like that can kind of happen here as well. Scorpio rising, Mercury retrograde in the 10th house, whole sign. You're going to have the Mercury retrograde actually start in Virgo, which for Scorpio risings is the 11th house, but it's going to retrograde back into Leah, which is the 10th house. For you, it's all on your South Node. So something else that can come up is like changes with travel plans, some legal changes that can be kind of going on, or legal documents that you're having to sign that pertain to taxes, estate, or inheritances. It's smack dab on your South Node. So my God, this is going to be a really interesting full moon for you, because it looks like there's something coming to you, that is owed to you karmically, because the full moon's on your North Node, ruled by Uranus, change in relationships. And then the sun is on the South Node, ruled by the sun, changes in regards to the direction of your career. So something life-changing is coming. I would say the lessons of Jupiter in the 8th house is receive. Yes, thank you. I will take that, right? And Scorpio risings and Scorpio placements in general are so quick to be like, no, I can do it on my own, especially if you have Venus retrograde, which you do. You got Venus and Jupiter in the 12th house. There can be this sense of giving to other people and not ever receiving. So you may notice with this Jupiter transit, and especially when Jupiter meets with your chart ruler, mid-August into September, people are saying, let me pay for that, or, let me gift you this, or let me reimburse you. And your lesson is to say, thank you, I accept that. That's it. That's all you got to say. And even though it's going to be uncomfortable, you do it anyway. And Jupiter is the traditional ruler of your Placidus 4th house. So I think it can also involve dealing with cousins, uncles, siblings, documents pertaining to home, property, real estate, things like that. And yeah, it can be some heavy stuff when you're dealing with some Jupiter transits in the 8th house. But in your chart, it's going to make a number of aspects, not just a square to Saturn, but it's also going to be making some squares to your moon and your Pluto. So it definitely means that there's going to be a major change because of what you're receiving or what support is coming in, not just to your home base, but also to this fixation that you have on working, being productive, right? Very Moon, Pluto, Uranus in the 10th house. You got to stay busy. This wants you to actually kind of take a step back and say, hold on a second, let's kind of recalibrate. Let's kind of, now figure out how we're feeling with some of these changes, both life-wise, physically, and financially, and make sure that, we're taking the time to kind of integrate some of the stuff that's happened. This can also be where, investments pay off, or, suddenly there's some kind of like insurance payout. I've seen people, especially Scorpio risings, I've seen like when Jupiter goes through their 8th house, as much as I hate to say it, there can be an uncle that dies or an aunt that dies and you get money. There can be car accidents. Obviously, we don't want that. But there can be, because Gemini is vehicles, and I've seen a lot of people with Mars and Jupiter in the 8th house, they get rear-ended or their car gets totaled, and then they end up, getting compensated for the car, but then they end up getting like a personal injury, payout or something. Weird stuff like that happens where they get some kind of lump sum that comes in out of the blue. Or they end up, having something that they've been working on creatively pay off, or an investment that they made pay off. So a lot of different things can happen. I will just tell you that your job is to receive, and likely you're going to start to see the real sparkles of this happening closer to around the full moon in August. You're going to want to watch the lunar eclipse in Pisces. That'll be around September 17th. That's going to be more pertaining to what's going on with your mom. In a family situation or a home situation, and that's going to give you more insight as to what's happening there. Okay, hopefully that's helpful for you. Sending you guys lots of good vibes. I hope she's doing well. All right, so I have got Alyssa, and then we're going to have Queen of Light Bulbs. You're welcome. You got a super complex chart, my dear. I've been through all those Uranus squares. That's been my life the last 2 years. I had Uranus opposed all my Scorpio, square my nodes. I was like, please get me out of this. Thankfully, it's over. It does get better. You just feel like you stuck your finger in a light socket for a little bit. All right. All right, Alyssa. So we've got Alyssa, and then we're doing a little bit of a synastry with this other person. So Alyssa's a Leo rising, Sun in Pisces, and Moon in Taurus. Wow, you got some real transits going on. Some real transits going on. Pluto coming up on your descendant in the opposition to Jupiter is kind of mirroring what you were talking about. My partner's super work focused, so am I. How do we find time to come together? We're kind of at a distance. And then Neptune's on your sun, so you kind of probably feel like you're stuck in a fishbowl right now, and you're like, which end is up? Uranus is on your moon, so there's lots of socializing and networking going on, and career opportunities. And Pluto is approaching a square to your Venus. So, oh my God. It's like you guys saved some of the most critical charts for last. It's good. It's very good. These are very complex things you guys got going on. I like it. All right, so let's pull up your other person, and then I'll read your question. Libra rising, Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Capricorn, and all right. Okay, so this was Alyssa's question. She says, there we go. She says, hey Candace, thanks for the reading. So this is synastry. We both work in entertainment industry and it's long distance. We love each other and making money doing what we love. It's been challenging. How can we maximize our careers and our relationship? Mine is 3/20/91. Theirs is 11/21/1990. So one thing that I would say, looking at their chart, is obviously Libra rising. You know, they've been having eclipses in the 7th house. They've had retrogrades in the 7th house. Has not made it the easiest for relating to other people. And there's definitely a lot of having to let go and make sacrifices, because there can be relationships that are coming in that really represent future potential growth for Libra rising, right? They're obviously going through a Jupiter-Mars transit too, which means there is a need to make some changes and be communicating what changes need to happen in relationships in order to kind of come together. And their Mars is retrograde in the 8th house, which means they can be a little resistant to change. And the 8th house is their partner making money. So Jupiter-Mars means their partner's making money and they're kind of like, this is great, but how do we come together? So it's reflecting what you were saying. There's still some room for development in relationships with this chart. I feel like it always starts with, well, who's going to make the change and how is it going to impact them? Obviously, he's a very money-focused and driven person with so many planets in his 2nd house. And the 2nd house ruler is in the 8th. So it means that the money that they make is somehow kind of intertwined with a partnership. With a Scorpio Sun, Libra rising, Mars in the 8th, eventually this is somebody who does some kind of work maybe with their partner, or they find ways to invest money together so that way they can have more of a relationship and they can have time. And they're ruled by Venus, and they've got Venus and Sag opposed Mars. So they're used to kind of having a relationship at a distance. And sometimes that opposition can be like, you know, distance make the heart kind of grow fonder type of vibes. I just think about the next like 2 years where there's more eclipses in his 7th house. There's retrogrades there in the spring, and that's going to be a much more kind of defined, like, what the hell are we doing kind of moment. While simultaneously Jupiter is retrograding back over his Mars. So that's going to be more where you're kind of like really figuring it out, right? There's also about to be a full moon on his north node. So there's big changes coming revolving around shifts with his home and his family. And I get that he wants to work and he wants to be busy, but like that's not really why he came here. He has the south node in Chiron in the 10th house and like Jupiter's there. So entertainment, success, wonderful. But his north node is in the 4th house, which is about home and family, and it's ruled by Saturn. And this full moon is about to bring his attention to what he should be doing in the life he should be cultivating and focusing on, where he's living and like what he's building with another person, right? All right, so with that being said, then we put your guys' charts together, and just to make it very simple, like there is a lot of stuff, if you notice in your chart, Saturn in the 7th house where you feel like relationships are delayed, Venus in the 10th house where there's a focus on career and reputation, Jupiter in the 1st house. So what's happening right now is you've got Pluto coming into your 7th house where you're like, there needs to be a change in relationships in a very big way. And it means that, you know, there needs to be a transformation of, you know, the heart space and how you guys are communicating and talking about how probably it's going to be about changing stuff within the home, because Scorpio is whole sign 4th, in order for the relationship to evolve. And that they would have to move or you would have to move, and you'd have to figure that out probably in like next year or so. And as that happens, Pluto is totally breaking down any of Saturn's limitations. Okay, so it would be any of his kind of roadblocks from being able to move forward in a relationship. And it's going to be squaring Venus. So it's also saying it does have an impact on your career and your status and also on your home, and it's opposing your Jupiter. So man, until Pluto leaves about 4 or 5 degrees, which won't be until like 2026, I think, maybe 2027, you're going to be in that Pluto transit. And it kind of reminds me of that movie, Something's Gotta Give. If you haven't seen that movie, go and watch it. It's about like all the relationships, and like because people are making so many changes in their relationships, like it has a ripple effect. And it's like there is no perfect way of having this relationship. I think it'll get to a point where you guys both can't be super career focused and successful and make time and see the relationship evolve. It's just not going to happen. Somebody's going to have to give. And I think it's going to be both of you guys kind of looking at some of your transits. The good news is once you get past spring of next year, his transits are actually really wonderful for relationships. You know, Saturn and Neptune go into the 7th house, which means that a partner is still going to be working and they're going to be super focused on their career and like what they're building. And it may mean that that's a time where they're like, you're doing your thing, and he is actually willing to kind of make a sacrifice. It's possible. We'll see. Anyway, the relationship together, putting the 2 charts together and how this works. So he's on the outside wheel and you're on the inside. And he's got his Jupiter in your 1st house, which you're used to having, his south node on your ascendant. So it does teach you to let go of old ways of living and old identities. Tons of planets in your 5th house, which is very romantic, and it does feel like true love, but also a ton of planets in the 6th house, which can bring up scheduling. I think that you're kind of used to that though, because you have so many planets there and you're used to like, you know, being entrepreneurial and kind of being flexible and like managing your own thing. And, you know, Scorpio sun, Capricorn moon, he gets it. He's very business oriented. So there can be this sense of understanding that. But I really feel like, to be honest with you, somebody who has that much Scorpio and Capricorn, like they almost need somebody who balances them out. Somebody who's going to say to them, like, it can't be all work and no play, you know? I'm not saying you can't do that because you have a lot of different planets that kind of make oppositions and squares and stuff. So I think that you do have that counterbalance. Obviously, together you guys create a full moon, and that moon is going to be in his 8th house. So the key is, how can we work smarter, not harder? Like if you guys love to make money and if you guys love your job and you love what you're doing, why not put your heads together and be like, dude, how can we find ways to start taking the money that we're making? How can we be investing it? How can we be trying to kind of streamline to where maybe we're doing some work together? How can we be trying to kind of move business that can be in both cities? So you guys can make this work. Like that's the key, basically, you know? And I think that, you know, so like I said, sooner or later, somebody's gonna have to give. Something's gonna have to give because it's not gonna be like this forever, and it's very obvious in your chart. If this were me, I feel like I would be really paying attention to the Mars retrograde because Mars will come through your 1st house. This is gonna be like in the fall, and it'll turn retrograde in December. And Mars represents your career, and it'll retrograde and oppose Saturn, which means you're going to be like, maybe I do need to slow down. Do I need to prioritize a relationship? Like, what direction am I going in? And it's going to be about whether or not you're reevaluating what direction you're going in and whether or not another person is willing to change. And then simultaneously for him, Mars will go retrograde in his 11th house, and it'll go into his 10th house, which means he may have some job changes anyway. So it's interesting that you're going to be like, I'm going to step back and see what he does. And then you kind of let him do his thing at the end of this year. I really feel like, you know, the sun trine sun, beautiful. The Mars moon connection, super spicy. Jupiter on your ascendant, optimistic. 5th house stellium, romance. It looks like your guys' Marses see each other. And also, let's see, Venus, quincunx or inconjunct Venus. You guys have different kind of love styles. Let's flip this around and look at his with yours. So you got all these planets in his 4th house. So have you ever talked to him about moving to be with him? Because that loaded 4th house, oh my gosh, you guys have a Venus-Juno conjunction too. So that's great for commitment. Your Mercury, your Sun in his 6th and Venus in the 7th. Your moon's in his 8th house. You know, I kind of feel like that can be tricky, although it's a full moon, but it's tricky because it does mean that, you know, you're pushing on him to make big changes in regards to the way that he looks at joint finances. And the moon is about the home, right? I just have students here. So, you know, timing wise for movement or moving is not quite yet in your chart. We can talk about that, but I would say pay attention to what happens over the next month with that full moon, because I think he's going to realize that there needs to be a change on the home front. And I feel like the eclipse that's going to be coming in his chart next year, there's going to be an eclipse in Aries here around March, is going to be an interesting one, because this is saying the action is going to be in relationships. Well, ruler is Mars. Mars is in the 10th house trine Saturn. That means that the 10th house is his career, but it represents the home of his partner. It's about trying to possibly angle your life so you guys can have a little bit more stability in the living situation next spring, kind of going into, you know, April, May of next year. And there's going to be a Mercury retrograde. There's going to be a Venus retrograde. And for a Libra rising to go through that, that's a time where a Libra rising is going to be like, am I going to stay with this person? Could I see myself committing to them? Is this a long-term relationship? And a lot of Libra risings are going to be facing a make or break situation next year. Whether they're married, they're engaged, they've been dating for 2 years, it's going to be a huge turning point. So you may want to wait and see what happens there. You guys can talk about it sooner, but I think that really it's going to basically be about March through May of next year is when everything could change, and it would have to correlate with somebody moving. And it's in both of your charts. So I don't think it's a bad thing. But that Mars retrograde over his south node, oof, he's going to have a job change. He just doesn't see it coming yet. And that's going to rock his world. Get ready. Because look at this. It's going to be right here in January. Mars retrograde on the South Node. Opposed Pluto. Oh boy. And it's going to be him being like, can I keep working in the city that I'm in? And I know I sound crazy saying this stuff, but I said the same stuff, guys, in 2019. I was like, why do I see everybody losing their job? Why is everybody moving away? Why is everybody getting sick? Or, you know, like, unfortunately, burying loved ones. And then 2020 happened. This Mars retrograde with the trine to Neptune and the opposition to Pluto, we're going to see some similar things that we saw when the North Node was in Cancer and the South Node was in Capricorn. We're going to see people that are going to be moving. People are going to be like, I can't work in certain cities. Stuff's going to get kind of weird. So I wonder which city it's going to be where it's going to majorly impact somebody's ability to do their job. And they're going to be like, well, screw it. I'll just come moving with you, or you come moving with me. So you're going to have to wait and see what kind of happens with that situation. All right. Let me know. Keep me updated. Good luck. All right. We got Queen of Light Bulbs and then Kelly, Leah, and Kimberly. All right. All right, so we got Queen of Light Bulbs here. Let's see what she says. Okay, my solar return is coming up. I'd love some insight, any positive opportunities I can position myself to maximize other negatives I can prepare for. There were a lot of unwanted negative surprises the previous few years that resulted in debilitating injuries and abusive relationship. I love to avoid more of that. If there's something that I can see coming, the North Node is about to conjunct my moon. The South Node is about to conjunct my Jupiter, Saturn. Pluto is still massaging my South Node while opposing my Sun Uranus square. Okay. Where is, I want to look at, because I didn't see you put that info here. Where do you currently reside? Thanks, Alyssa. So I can look at your solar return chart. Portland. One thing that I will say that I would just pay attention to is that the sun is the most important planet in your chart because you're ruled by the sun. Pluto is still in opposition to your sun, and you're going to be dealing with that for the next year, while simultaneously it's conjunct your South Node. All right? Yes, Neptune is trining, and it's also making a trine to your natal Uranus, but that opposition to your sun basically means that you're still dealing with Pluto-Sun opposition stuff for the next year. So let's see. And your birthday is going to be on that full moon. All right, so this is your solar return chart. Sag rising, sun in the 8th. And this will be right after the full moon. And then the moon obviously is in Aquarius, conjunct Pluto. So Sag rising chart, we're looking at Jupiter. Jupiter's in the 7th. So it's basically saying you're finding yourself more focused in partnership with other people this year. 7th house can be counselors, therapists, clients, romantic relationships, business partners, what have you. And this is at a 12, so it can be about spiritual advisors, it can be about working with intuitives, it can be working in dissolving old issues and problems and relationships that you've had in the past with other people. I think it's a good indicator of relationship opportunities in this next year. And not just because Jupiter is in the 7th, but also because Jupiter sextiles Venus, and because Jupiter is also sextile the North Node. Okay? And it's trine the moon. So there are some nice aspects going on with Jupiter. The sun in the 8th house, on the other hand, it's like, this is where you kind of look at things and you go, what do I want to change? You know, what have I been afraid to deal with? What do I need to heal? What am I willing to let go of? And 29 degrees always represents a critical degree. And the sun in this chart represents the 9th house, which is about your belief system, your philosophy, education, travel, law and legal matters. So it can mean that there's a change and a transformation of your belief system. And with the sun in opposition to Pluto, which represents the subconscious, it's about also shifting the way that you look at your values and your resources and security even. You'll have to see what happens with that full moon, because hours just prior before your birthday is when you're going to have it. And it does represent this polarity between your 12th house lord and also, you know, the sun, which deals with your beliefs. Very financial, usually like a full moon in the 2nd house with planets in the 8th house could mean that, you know, there's a large payment that's due, or there is some kind of, you know, check that you end up cashing, or there is some kind of big kind of expense that comes in. And the 2nd house is what you pay for, and the 8th house is other people's money. So this could be about tackling debt. This could be about tackling, you know, budget stuff, paying stuff off, mortgages, debt consolidation, you know, loans, all that stuff can kind of come up this year. 8 degrees is about change and transformation. And so it's interesting that Jupiter is the ruler and it's in the 7th. So it might feel like you're finally emotionally healing any trauma that you've had. 8 in relation to relationships. And now you're kind of opening yourself up a little bit more again to changes and learning how to be more vulnerable when it comes to other people, and trusting other people more, and kind of merging with other people emotionally, intimately, you know, financially. So that's a theme. And the Sun trine Neptune also is about being more kind of tapped in and intuitive and aware of, you know, what does and doesn't need to be said, and, you know, changes that might be happening emotionally or within, you know, relationship to family members, are also the home. So there's some pretty decent aspects here. I think the one thing that is a little jarring is definitely Moon conjunct Pluto. Sometimes I see this in a year where somebody works through a crisis. Sometimes I see this in a year where a grandma passes, or, you know, you go through like a major home remodel, or there is some kind of, you know, drama that you have with a, you know, a relationship to somebody. The moon is at a 7. So it is about kind of getting to the core of some of the relationship trauma and like not holding on to it anymore. You know what I'm saying? The other thing that I would say is that, you know, the sextile between the 8th house and the 6th house is really putting an emphasis on changes in pattern and like healing something. And then Mercury is in a square at 26 degrees. So this can be some kind of communication stress maybe that you're having with other people. But it can, I don't think it necessarily has to be romantic partners. It could be neighbors. It could be, you know, family members, because Mercury can be that. So can Gemini. She says, is there ever a positive spin to Pluto's opposition to the Sun? You've gotten to a point where you can have gotten through the worst already. I've been dragged through it, and I've paid Pluto's dues. As much as I want to say yes, I believe the answer is no. And I think it's more critical for you because your Sun is natally in the 12th house. And because it is at a critical 29 degrees, that it's a little bit more intense. So if you look at this, right, you're going to have the full moon that's right along your south node in your 6th house, which is about health, habits, routines. And it is going to be, this is ruled by Saturn. So not allowing relationship blockages or issues to actually impact your productivity or your health or your ability to work. And then simultaneously, this is ruled by Uranus, and you have got Mars conjunct Uranus, granted Mars trines. For me, I think this is about really making sure that you're paying attention to your health. And that has been the Pluto opposition to your Sun. The Sun rules your body. Sun in the 12th house is about emotions and things that are kind of stirring in your subconscious that you don't deal with. And then Pluto comes up and says, hey, here's all these feelings or these home matters or these emotions or issues with the past or these traumas you haven't dealt with. You know, and it can manifest as some health challenges or some breaks and patterns maybe with work. So you're almost done. That's the good news, is that you're almost done. But when an outer planet hits 29 degrees and it's critical, it means that it's like the whole world thought they were done with that situation, and it's not. So it may at least make you feel better knowing everybody else is kind of going through a similar transit as well. Not everybody has it opposed their Sun, but you know. And remember that your Sun's conjunct the North Node. So this means that in the 12th house, part of your lesson in this lifetime is about being like okay, you know, this is about really knowing that I'm here to experience and complete certain cycles that I maybe have not done in the past. The sun is ruled by the moon, and the moon is in Aries, where the North Node is transiting. What if I told you that in your chart, it looks like dramatic changes, sometimes crisis, sometimes working through fear, actually is the catalyst for change, right? Probably not what you want to hear, but that's how I read your chart. And when the North Node hits your moon, you start tapping into your instinctual, you know, kind of lunar habits. So the moon in Aries is a little spicy. It can be combative. And then the North Node in the 8th is about saying changes and transformation. So I think you're kind of tapping into your internal knowing when you need to fight back, when you need to stand up for yourself, when you need to be more independent. And then simultaneously, the South Node, yes, it's hitting your Saturn, so it's clearing relationship karma, any financial issues or self-esteem issues. And then South Node hitting Jupiter may actually bring in some kind of healing. So there's some good stuff in this. It's not all like crisis. I think you're just getting your ass kicked with Pluto on your South Node, personally. That's my thought. But the positive in this is that, dude, Pluto's trining your Jupiter and your Saturn. It means that it's going to open the door to healthier self-esteem, better jobs, more money, healthier habits, better eating habits, all of those things. And I would just say a lot of your chart is about embracing changes and transformation. And yes, you can go through periods of kind of feeling like you're in solitude, or you're like the hermit, or you're kind of isolated. But I would tap into what you're learning with the North Node here. And you got other stuff going on, babe. That Mars transit's going to go right over your sun. So when Mars retrogrades, this is going to be another phase that you're going to deal with at the end of this year about integration of what you're learning and how you're kind of working on things behind the scenes and learning to kind of like heal yourself. And then a full moon on your descendant. It's like, my God. There's been a lot of you guys tonight that are kind of getting hit with these late degrees in the fixed signs, and you're all feeling the rumbles of the astrology. So this year, your birthday is coming up, and you're going to be in a Jupiter year. So that's going to be activating your 8th house. So your annual perfection is ruled by Jupiter, and you've got your natal Jupiter in the whole sign 3rd. So this looks like, I'd go and learn about annual perfection year 8. And the good news is that your ruler is conjunct Saturn and it's exalted. So this would be a good year for talk therapy if you're open to it. Jupiter opposes your moon. So this is about being able to deal with your subconscious. Maybe hypnotherapy can be helpful, or some kind of soul retrieval work or something like that. And 8th house years are when there is some kind of significant change and we're dealing with the shadow. But I think through talking about it, journaling, working through it, you're going to actually have something unlock. And you'll see when, Jupiter changes signs, that's when it's going to be the most active. It'll be in Gemini all year. And you'll also see when there's an eclipse in your 8th house, so around mid-September. And then I think there's another one next spring. That one might be in Aries, actually. But those eclipses are going to be the most active in your 8th house. So think of the 8th house as like, finally cutting to the core and healing something. I'd look into like meditation groups, and I look into hypnotherapy groups because it's in Pisces. I think that'll be really helpful in like working through and processing trauma and having other people you can kind of bond with while Jupiter is moving through your whole sign 11th house to help you kind of process and kind of heal some of that stuff and get feedback from other people, so you're not feeling like you're going through this process alone, Anyway, hopefully that's helpful. You're almost done. Once you get to the new year, you're out of that Pluto stuff. It's going to get a little bit easier. Good luck. Okay, so we've got Kelly. There we go. And she's got questions about her solar return. So that looks like that's going to be August 22nd, 2024. And another one. Gemini rising. So we've got Gemini rising, Obviously, Gemini rising is a year of communication, you know, sometimes learning changes with your immediate environment, sometimes moving. It can also be about traveling or communication with relatives. And the ruler is Mercury, and it's located in your 4th house, and it's retrograding. So it means this will be a year where I think you're reflecting on the past. And Leo can be past creative projects. It could be past places you've lived. It can be about past romantic partners. And it can also be talking about a change in your living situation or reconnecting maybe with, you know, family members that you feel like you've been disconnected with, or maybe going back home and visiting relatives. That'll be right around the time of like the full moon and also the Kazemi. So I would watch even the days leading up to this, that there can be some news that's coming from your family in some capacity that you're getting. Probably what I think about is the strongest energy here is that this is right around the Mars-Jupiter conjunction. So Jupiter obviously represents relationships, and it's also going to represent friendships. And Mars and Jupiter is this very bold, daring, entrepreneurial, kind of busy, really chatty kind of energy in your 1st house. And it's great because you're going to feel kind of wanderlust, but it's going to kind of get trapped up in a square to Saturn. So you're going to be like, oh, I can't always just run off and travel or do things, because there's going to be some kind of expectation or responsibility or work obligation that's going to be happening. And then simultaneously, you see that square Venus as well, which is going to be about like relationships and partnerships. So it looks like you're needing to practice patience in this next year when it comes to how you're navigating your career and also your home and your living situation life. Or you may be feeling like you're at a bit of a crossroads and trying to decide if you want to stay in one place or if you want to go somewhere else. So that's pretty obvious in this particular chart. You're also going to have the moon meeting with the North Node in the 11th house. So there's an emphasis on making friends, networking, you know, seeing people, connecting with like-minded people, and that sextiles Pluto. So you might feel empowered by some of these people. And also it kind of sextiles the ascendant. So it looks like you feel like you need like a social outlet with some of these transits throughout this next particular year. One thing that I would watch for that I think is going to be rather important also is that Venus will oppose Saturn. So there can be like this sense of maybe, you know, making a commitment when it comes to home or family or, you know, living situations, which may potentially limit you from feeling like you're super focused on what's going on with your career. Saturn retrograde might mean that you're taking a step back. And you're asking questions about pregnancies. So Mercury rules the 5th house. And what's interesting is that Mercury is retrograding in conjunction to the sun, technically in the whole sign 3rd house, which could be about, you know, children and like the mind and rethinking, you know, having kids. And then you're going to have an eclipse here. So probably August through what could be about like, I would say early October can be an indication of pregnancy. Especially with Venus right on the cusp of the 5th house, although Virgo is not known for being a fertile sign, but still Venus being there is a good sign. And I would say motherhood is very much the moon. So the moon conjunct the North Node can also be an indication of focusing on that as well. I like to compare this to the natal chart. So let's see. It's going to put your natal Venus on your sun, Mars and Venus conjunct, that's nice. And it looks like your natal Mercury is retrograde. So there's that. And then you've kind of got Pluto dancing around your Saturn and your moon. But pregnancy would be more connected to Venus in your chart. That's your 5th house. Uranus just got there. Actually, Mars and Uranus are about to come into conjunction. So that can also be a time where there's opportunity for pregnancy. I would say my guess here, because your 5th house ruler is Venus and it's combust with the sun and it's on Regulus. Sometimes I see this in charts of people who have a lot of kids. Sometimes I see this in the chart of people who have fertility issues. So I'm not a doctor, but I would say Venus combust in the 8th house can definitely be some hormonal stuff. And it looks like right now you have Uranus coming into a square with your Venus, which basically means that You know, making changes maybe to recreation and other things that could impact fertility is important. Jupiter and Mars in your 6th house is great for health this year, and you may actually find that there is a potential opportunity for a positive pregnancy sometime in the fall when you have that full moon in Taurus, because it'll be in your 5th house conjunct Uranus. But you also want to look at, like, you know, your progressions and like other stuff too. But it looks like with retrogrades over your Venus and your Mercury in August, you're changing direction and trying to figure out what tweaks or changes you need to make in order to feel like pregnancy can actually happen for you. But 29 degrees is always a very critical degree with pregnancy stuff in the sign of Leo, because that can deal with fertility problems. But it looks like your progressed moon is in Aries, and it's in opposition to Mars, so a little frustrated with pregnancy stuff. And when I see the moon and Mars make a positive aspect, that could be different. And then Mars is going to retrograde over your ascendant. So it does look like if you're not pregnant by the fall, then the Mars retrograde is a time where you're going to be working hard to try to maintain pregnancy. And I really feel like the fall looks better because Mars will trine Saturn, and then you're going to have a full moon in Taurus. So, you know, I'm not going to say stop trying, but definitely like October, November, things look a little bit more solid in terms of things being able to kind of stick there. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful for you, but definitely that solar return is like a complete reworking of like, oh, everything's really focused on what's going on with the home and what's happening with the family, and kind of taking a bit of a step back, especially come spring of next year, from outer kind of world obligations to do more of this stuff in the 4th house. So baby dust to you. Good luck. Let us know what happens. Happy early birthday. All right, so we've got Leah and then Kimberly. And if you guys haven't already liked the stream, can you do me a favor? Can you give me a thumbs up and just let everybody know that we're still here? I know you're here, but it helps the algorithm. I appreciate it. All right, so we've got Leah here, January 5th, 92 at 5:31 p.m. in Atlanta. Sun in Capricorn, Cancer rising, and the moon is in Capricorn. What's up, Leah? She says, I want to know what this new moon is teaching me about triggers on my job with others. Lately, I've been receiving feedback about being a mean person or just coming off mean. Thanks. If it's possible, I wanted to know what I released under the full moon in Capricorn as well, since my attitude was brought to awareness right before that time on a trip. All right, let's talk about it. So first of all, we're going to go back. We're going to look at the last full moon. All right, so this was in June. And it sounds like you had some kind of an awareness that happened. Cool time for traveling, because you had the Sun, Venus, Mercury in your 12th house for reflection and time away. And then maybe the full moon was kind of helping you like adjust things. It looks like that full moon was relatively close also to your series. So it might have been about being like, I need time away from stuff just to kind of pause and reflect. And the full moon was in your 6th house of health and habits. But obviously as a Capricorn, as a Cancer rising, you're going to hear that both of the Capricorn full moons are very relational. All right. So it looks like, you know, this was about kind of reflecting and looking at some of your habits, your routines, or your maybe even your work habits. But it sounds like you've been getting a little bit more challenging feedback with what has been happening with this most recent new moon. So let's look at that, which is today. I just want to go back to this. Want to know what this new moon is teaching me about my triggers on the job with others. I've been receiving feedback about being a mean person or coming off mean. Well, you are Capricorn, Sun, and Moon. You're not mean. You're just like, this is what it is, baby. Remember that the moon rules your chart, okay? And the moon in the 7th house is clients. So when you've got moon in the 7th house, you're counseling people, you're talking to people, you're giving them feedback. The moon is sandwiched between Saturn, which is realistic, direct, the taskmaster, And it's between Neptune. So it's a fine line between being intuitive and sensitive and compassionate and also telling it like it is, right? And so maybe you work on that intuition to relate and have compassion for other people, but tell people what they want to hear. Then at the same time, you had this new moon that came in that was on your ascendant. So first of all, the mood is moody. There's a reason why we call it a mood. For about 2.5, almost 3 days, we can be in a mood while the moon is moving and making aspects in our chart. When it's in your first house, you're more in tune with your emotions, your needs, your sensitivity, yourself, and what's going on. It's being polarized because it's in opposition to all this shit where you're usually there for other people, putting other people first. And maybe you were a little bit more sensitive than usual and you were kind of feeling as if, man, I'm feeling a little bit more sensitive and critical to other people's harsh reactions. It's a mirror effect. So kind of what you do for other people, right? With the moon in the 7th house and Neptune and the sun and Uranus, where you're telling people what's up and what's coming and you're kind of forecasting things and then you give it to it like it is. When the moon and Venus and the sun went here, it opposed all this, which means other people were going, why are you mean, Saturn? Why are you being so cold, moon in Capricorn? What's your problem? Why are you kind of reacting or projecting on me, sun, Uranus? So it could have been happening, but it also could have been just to give you perspective that's just like maybe other people kind of perceive this way and now you're on the other side of it and now you're feeling it, So they say that, Saturn is connected to being mean or Mars. And so you have a very strong Saturn signature. It doesn't mean you're mean. And then on top of that, you got Mercury conjunct Mars, which means you can be tell it like it is. But also in the 6th house means that you're here to be able to decipher and decode symbols, Mars's symbols or omens, and be able to forecast things. Here's what I think. I think that oppositions are meant to give us some kind of perspective. Maybe it means that you had this experience and you're able to kind of look at things and go like, wow, okay, people are dealing with some really difficult shit. Maybe it's having me think a little bit about my counseling skills and how I'm relaying certain information to people. And, maybe it's just making me more in tune and kind of putting myself in their position of how they would be feeling if they were kind of getting some like difficult, news, perhaps. And so because this was so direct in opposition to your sun, it created some insecurities maybe because it triggered your 2nd house lord, and it may have brought up some frustration with being like, man, there's now somebody being like, screw you, I want a refund, or something that could have caused some friction in terms of like money or security. And new moons are meant to be about setting a new intention. And so now it's about being more in tune with yourself and your emotions and your needs. And so maybe it's about kind of being like, okay, I'm hurt, I'm going to heal that. But simultaneously, it's got me thinking about how I'm going to be relaying some of these messages kind of moving further. Just a heads up, there's going to be another full moon that you're going to have, obviously, in this next month on the 21st. That'll be a 2nd full moon in Capricorn. And this is going to be more directly dealing with other people because it's really in your 7th house. Critical degree, conjunct Pluto. It can mean that there is some intense conversations with romantic partners, but it also can be clients. It can also be drama in regards to people you're servicing. It's so interesting that it's like, I think a lot of it's like the Capricorn stellium, like blessing and the curse, right? People who have like a really strong Saturn signature or that Capricorn kind of stellium, they're very mature and they're very Saturnian and they're about boundaries and, responsibility. And so people will come to you because you have that ability. But then when you relay the information they want to hear, they can be like, oh, why are you being so harsh? And part of this is also Saturn is now retrograding in your 9th. So this is going to have you going back and reevaluating, well, who do I want to work with? And are there certain people I want to cut loose? And is there a need for me to brush up on counseling skills? Or is there another practitioner that I work with? Or is there going to be, a book or, something I'm going to be reading that's going to be helping me kind of like navigate dealing with some of these people, right? That can be kind of difficult. And so 7th house, all that Uranus, Neptune, moon stuff means that you do bring people in that can be extremely sensitive and also unaware of their own kind of blockages. So you're trying to work with them and help them, but if they don't want to see it, well, it is what it is. So that's going to be phase 2. And this will be the full moon that's coming off of this particular new moon. So think about that's going to maybe be a make or break time where there are some people that you may kind of cut loose or kind of release. And also Pluto is getting closer and closer to your Saturn. So it's going to be over the next couple of years, really reevaluating and asking yourself, are some of these clients potentially toxic? Or are some of my relationships toxic? Am I not having good boundaries with certain people? And is it weighing on me? And you might kind of go, well, this isn't worth what I'm charging. I don't get paid enough for this, Saturn in the 8th house. And so it might kind of make you adjust the way that you're doing your pricing or the way that you're looking at your sessions and, having better boundaries and maybe not letting people have so much time with you or have so much contact when it comes to your business. And then, something will change in regards to those transits as well, especially because Saturn at a 6 is going to be about your scheduling, your health. It might also be about hiring somebody to help you who does all of the back and forth with clients and customers. And maybe you just, do your readings or do whatever you're doing and then you take space from them, I know what that's like. I got one of those Capricorn stelliums too. So we kind of have a reputation for being a bit of a grouch. But when shit hits the fan, we're the people that you go to because you're like, oh, they're gonna tell it to me like it is. So you can't really have it both ways. Make the new moon be more about being in tune with your own emotions. And I feel like if there's any takeaway from this, it's about learning how to kind of approach things with maybe a sense of a little bit better understanding or a little bit more tact or, being a little bit more compassionate because the way you move through things is very different than the way other people kind of move through things. Like you're like Teflon, right? Like you're tough. I can see that. However, other people sometimes aren't able to kind of move through life that way. So tap into the Cancer energy of being that nurturer, kind of holding that space for people so that way they can kind of be vulnerable. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, and we have got Kimberly. So let's pull up Kimberly. I thought I had her, maybe not. There we go. You're welcome. Okay, she says, water, water, water everywhere. Hey Candace, my cellar partially flooded and my freezer is leaking. One of my AC units is leaking water. Last weekend the power went out and I had to buy water. Last week one of those jugs totally emptied on the floor and now my washing machine fills partially with water and does not drain. All in the last 2 weeks. What the fuck is going on with the stars, the new moon, or other things with all this water? Is it metaphorical? Ooh. Well, sounds like Saturn-Neptune problems. So there's got to be something going on. So she is a Pisces rising. She's got Saturn retrograding over her ascendant. Her sun is in Leo and her moon is in Scorpio. Oof. Well, part of me feels inclined to tell you, being somebody who's got Scorpio moon conjunct Neptune, and Neptune is one of your co-rulers, and Scorpio kind of like 8th house is about, crisis and like things that cost money and things that you have to fix and you have to deal with, and the moon is your emotions, and then Neptune is water. So just that in general, even completely unaspected, you will see some kind of crisis revolving around money or things that get flooded or things that maybe dissolve or break down, and it ends up kind of, being an issue for you. So there's different layers to this. For a Leo sun, right? Your moon and Neptune is 4 houses away from your sun. So we could look at this as your home base, even though your home is your 4th house, stay with me. From the perspective of your sun, you've got moon conjunct Neptune, which can mean emotions that are kind of confusing or lost or things that are kind of mysterious. And here we have now Pluto squaring your moon and Neptune. Costly, moon at a 2, repairs due to things that break down that need to be fixed, Neptune at a 6, that involve water. Okay, so that's 1. 2 is Saturn's retrograding over your ascendant. I have noticed the same things, guys. I've noticed the same things. It's like Saturn went retrograde, and mysteriously my kitchen faucet like would work and then it would not work. And it's one of those ones that you can turn on and you can also tap it. So I'm like thinking like maybe it got tapped. So I'm like in there like beating my kitchen sink and can't figure out what's wrong with it. And, you know, it just turns out that like, apparently things need to be kind of tightened. And then, you know, the water kind of flows again. And that didn't happen until Saturn went retrograde. So Pisces is water, okay? This is why we're seeing dams and levees having issues. We're going to see lots of flooding issues. Like you're going to see things going haywire with like water and other things that are structured, right? Because Saturn is structured, so it can be machines breaking down. Anyway, Saturn is retrograding over your ascendant, and your ascendant is 18 degrees, which deals with things that need to get fixed or repaired. Saturn represents responsibility, sometimes burdens, and it's on your ascendant, okay? Now your home is more Mercury, but it's interesting because in your chart, your natal Mercury is actually in Cancer. So Saturn is trining Mercury. So this means that maybe you feel more responsible for fixing these things and it's cutting into like your playtime, or it's impacting your ability to feel like you can kind of like enjoy and play and do the things that you want, maybe like with your family, or maybe even when it comes to your hobbies. So Mercury trine Saturn actually I think is positive. It does bring in the support of people to kind of help you. But Saturn and Neptune are still retrograde in this sign, and they're not going to go direct until later this year. We're going to see Saturn go direct in November. But Neptune is still squaring your fourth house, your IC. And sometimes when Saturn and Neptune are in our fourth house and they retrograde, it's like, have I not been seeing this? Has this been having a problem for a while? And is it just now coming to my attention? And have I had a lack of focus? You know, so you've got it a couple different ways. Something I would watch for is you have some other transits that make me feel like some other problems can happen, okay? And some of them are actually going to be this week. One is going to be when we see the moon go into Virgo, and this could be about trying to have somebody come in and fix something on the 9th or the 10th, because the 6th house is about like bringing a repairman in or somebody who's going to move or replace something. And it's going to oppose Saturn, so they're going to be like, let me take care of it. And it's going to come into a square with your IC and also your Jupiter, which means get out of the way. If somebody needs to replace something or fix something, let them handle it. Because likely, you know, yeah, you're going to have to pay for it, but you can actually get something taken care of and it can really be fixed with that moon in Virgo. And they may say to you, oh, well, you didn't see this was on, or maybe this valve was missing, or this washer was gone, or something got backed up, and they'll show you something that you need to see when it comes to maintaining it better, I would think, at least. Simultaneously, Saturn and Neptune are also squaring your Jupiter, which means you're kind of like, well, I didn't know I needed to change the vent, or that needed to be replaced once a year, or that valve was broken, or I didn't know that, you know, it was still under warranty. So there will be some things that are brought to your attention, basically. I got a couple more dates for you really quick. So you're going to see Mars and Jupiter come into conjunction, which could be a costly repair. Floors, basements, things like that. Cellars is the fourth house, because this is what's going to be what's beneath, what's underneath, okay, here. So what's going to happen is, I notice Mercury is turning retrograde in your sixth house in August, where something's trying to get fixed or repaired, or maybe they're giving you quotes on what it's going to cost to fix it, or maybe they're trying to get in there and fix it and they're finding, you know, problems, or they're trying to kind of troubleshoot stuff. You're going to want to watch when Mars and Jupiter are coming into a square with Saturn, because Mars could be what's costly. It rules your second house of money and your eighth house of joint, and in things that are joint investments or debt. And your Jupiter, and it's going to come into conjunction right around August 13th, where you may need to actually dig something up or kind of, you know, remove something out of the cellar to be able to fix it. Jupiter is 2 rays. Or maybe they find something and they go, oh, by the way, there's mold down there. Price just went up, you know, or it's going to cost us more in materials, and it's going to square Saturn. So be very careful the first 2 weeks of August with this brewing conjunction and also a Mercury retrograde. Also, make sure you have people who are replacing things properly, that, you know, you're getting quality people to come in and do the job and stuff. Otherwise, during that Mercury retrograde, there could be a screw up and it could be more costly. And then you're going to want to watch when Mars squares Neptune, because it can be about something that's trying to be fixed, but there's something that's missed. And that kind of starts up right here. around September 1st through, I would say, the 4th, Mars square Neptune. Jupiter will square Saturn in August and December, and that can be where you're like, oh my God, I'm not pleased with my home, or I need to make changes, or maybe this stuff needed to be changed out, so I'm just considering, do I want to sell this place? Do I want to get out of here? Do I want to completely renovate and change something? So those things will kind of come up as well, but between Saturn and Neptune retrograde in your first house, the squares to your fourth house, some of the things that are also going on involving squares to your natal moon and Neptune, it's always like connections to your emotions in your home. And I would say that I have noticed personally when I had some Saturn stuff going on in aspect to Neptune or my fourth house, which is kind of like this, my house flooded. My house totally flooded. And I also noticed that there was all kinds of other water things that would happen. And it did kind of correlate with not dealing with emotional stuff, or there being things going on where I was like not processing things, and it was like the energy was getting trapped in the home. And then I was having all kinds of like water issues. So it might be worth actually, doing a little work with Saturn on Saturdays and talking to Saturn about better kind of clearing and cleansing the space. I would use liquids or oils, throw a couple drops of maybe some Van oil and some water with some salt and lemon and wash the floors, and maybe, like blast some chants or do something, open up the windows and clear the space and ask Saturn to protect it. Maybe lay some salt or something around the perimeter of the house and make a conscious effort to be kind of clearing what's actually going on in the home. And yeah, more responsibility with Saturn on your ascendant square Jupiter, but I think inevitably down the road, it's going to be about kind of really opening the space and creating a better space, or deciding whether or not it's time to kind of throw in the towel and say, let me do what I can do to fix this, and then I'm going to kind of go my merry way, and I'm going to go somewhere else, right? This is also part of Pluto square your moon, especially at a 2. It could be where the expenses are so costly that you're like, nah, it's time to make a move. So hopefully that's helpful in giving you some insight. I'm sending you lots of good vibes. Tell Saturn to keep Neptune out of your space, man, and hopefully things get better for you. I hope that was helpful for you guys. You guys gave me some really awesome questions and readings tonight. It was a lot of entertainment. If you guys like my style of readings, you want to book a personal reading with me, you can click the links below in the description. You can head over to beyondtheveiledtarot.com. I take clients one-on-one in person. I do solar return readings, election readings, natal charts, and much, much more. I also teach astrology. So if you'd like to learn astrology with me, I have 2 awesome courses, a beginner's course where I teach you all about reading natal charts and how to make sense of your chart. And if you'd like to learn how to read transits the way that I do, you can check out my Astro 201, where I do a whole course where I teach you how to do return charts, transit charts, progressions, and much, much more. So I'd love to teach you about astrology. I'm here every Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to check out that election astrology webinar that I put out. That's going to be on sale for probably through the weekend. Otherwise, I will be back here on Sunday. We're going to do astro weather and talk all about Venus's ingress into the sign of Leo. Make sure you're subscribed, and I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. I'll catch you back here then. Take care.